Saif, it's been a really tumultuous time in a sense for you because multiple things and multiple realities seem to be sort of unfolding one after the other. It began, I think, in some ways with your father's death. You're coping with that. Now you find yourself in the headlines for the wrong reasons, a brawl in a restaurant. And now you've got this big, much anticipated film coming out and it's all happening together. Do you feel...
There's also some black flagging in Bhopal over...
your decision to appoint a Saudi trust.
Reservations in Saudi Arabia. So, yes.
Is there, do you still manage to smile through all of that? Is there a sense of the world caving in?
No, it's not really caving in. There's an awareness that comes about. You feel certain departments of your life, you watch them kind of flashing like beacons and you say, okay, this wasn't a great thing that happened, obviously, at the Taj. I've apologized for it, I'll apologize again. I don't think a movie star should ever allow himself to get into that situation, even if you're reacting or whether you call it self-defense or whatever. Some people you meet are incredibly obnoxious. Some things happen that are, I think, normal people don't realize how offensive people can be sometimes.
But why are you apologizing then? If you continue to feel that the other person was obnoxious.
Yes, but I shouldn't, there's so many times that happens. I mean, I think growing up in some bars in Delhi, you learn fast how to avoid a situation rather than let it grow, or some things move too quickly to control. But, you know, I apologize because I do happen to feel that at the end of it all, sometimes I'm doing an interview, there's kids watching in the front row and we're discussing a fight. So it's much quicker just to say and simpler to tell them that, listen, whatever it was, sorry, it shouldn't have happened is the main point.
No, I guess what I was asking was that do you feel it shouldn't have happened because you're a public figure who should not have, in a sense, taken the law into your own hands, however irritating you may have found that situation? Or are you apologizing because you feel you did something
first of all,
wrong
what really
beyond that?
upsets me is that the perception of it is that there's this spoiled movie star who's making a tremendous amount of noise and has been kindly asked to keep quiet by a sweet family, and he's reacted by hitting the chap. So, I mean, I don't know what to say to that except that it's completely untrue. And I'd never in a million years do that. And beyond that, I mean, I haven't much to say except that two people got into an argument that shouldn't have happened again. But sorry, ask me your question again.
No,
so I can try and answer.
no, the question was that when you say you shouldn't have done it, is it that you shouldn't have done it because you raised your hand and it doesn't matter who raised their hand first, you should have just stepped out of that situation? Or are you saying sorry because you feel you were at fault?
No, I'm saying sorry because of the former reason, that being someone who should have seen that this situation is going to lead to something much more, and it's not about only the present moment, and it doesn't even matter who's right and wrong. What matters is who's going to be remembered for doing what.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain amount of maturity that's called for and an understanding where you say, I mean, I don't think, you know, someone like my father would ever have let that happen.
Yeah. I mean, he was the original gentleman in a way, right?
And I'm sure people have said funny things or whatever.
Irritating things to him as well.
So I apologize for handling it in a more volatile fashion than it should have been.
What did somebody like your mother say to you after this happened?
I think she got our version of it from Karina before me. And no, I think her first concerns were maternal. She said, you know, how much trouble is there going to be and what happened and these things. And then later on, you know, a little bit of a
Did you get a scolding?
I got a raised eyebrow and I thought we were done with that sort of thing kind of expression. But I think she also understands what happened, but yes, I don't think a mother's ever going to be particularly impressed with that sort of thing.
But it's interesting that you say that there's this way that a narrative would place you in the narrative.
It's been so long. This has happened some time ago. So I've gotten used to it. So I mean, even my interview with you, if we'd spoken maybe a week ago, I would have been much more fiery in my self-defense, saying that, you know, it's remarkable, it's unbelievable that, you know, you're sitting there, you're aggressed upon, somebody abuses you, somebody hits you, and in self-defense something happens, and then later on to try and hurt you, terrible stories are told which everybody seems to believe. That's the actual truth of the situation. A week, 10 days later, I say, you know, look at all this that's happening. I mean, it would have been so much easier and more civilized, to have avoided it. I wish I'd had the self-control and the wisdom to say, you know, I'm not falling for this.
I get what you're saying, but what I'm really trying to get under the skin of is what you alluded to, this narrative that's created around,
the press.
The media cliche becomes the bad boys of Bollywood, right? That's the headline you get.
Yes, and I think, you know, we're a country, maybe I'm starting to think things like we don't take too well to, you know, autocratic people. I mean, we've had some kind of a bloodless revolution. I mean, and I'm made out to be sort of a French aristocrat in 1700 and, you know...
And now you're a Nawab to boot, right?
Which, you know, again, I was thinking, I mean, there's two sides to that. First of all, my refusal to accept that.
You didn't want to accept the title.
No, I can't possibly. I mean, my father didn't. I mean, he had 2 signatures, I remember, when we were kids, he used to sign Patodi. And then it became Saif Ali Khan, and I asked him why, and he said, well, because, you know, that's what it is now. And he's always been someone who followed that and was too confident in what he was doing. And
he never used his title
tag
ever.
To be, well, he took it very seriously, I mean, in the sense that I think, you know, Patodi was very important to him. And we were in Patodi recently, and he had a tradition of giving a prize to there's a girls' school there, so encouraging education or creating some kind of scholarship for them. And I said to them, they were saying, you know, you're the new Nawab, and I said, I don't think you should call me that, let's call him the last Nawab. And he's allowed to call himself Patodi because it's such a small town that nobody would ever have heard of. And now, you know, it's written in gold leaf at Oxford and at Lord's and at Headingley and at Winchester and Lockers Park, and, you know, places which are hard to reach, really. So
why were you reluctant to take the title? Is it because you think it's anachronistic in a way?
Absolutely, and also titles don't exist anymore. And you know, as members of a modern society, people who work for a living, and also, you know, it's difficult for me not to take the title because I've always been there's people who would expect it. There's so many different spheres to my life. Like if I go to Patodi, they'll be deeply disappointed. If I look at some people, they'll say, "Well, why aren't you doing that? It's a family tradition." Also, for me, it's not a title like to normal people. Normal people will think of it as though you want to be a show-off kind of prince, like from a movie. They don't have anything to actually connect to. Whereas I have my father or my grandfather, family tradition, so part of me wants to follow in that and say, but to my mind, it would just be to look after Patodi. And, you know, maybe renovate the house or do something along those lines.
To be invested emotionally but not take the title seriously at all.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or to, you know, get this polo match somehow to raise funds for an eye hospital, or just, we're still trying to work it out in our production, because while my father was alive, there was a gap, a schism between what I was doing in my life, really, and what my family was doing. And now there seems to be a need to merge those two, which I'm still coming to terms with how to do. But something like Patodi needs to be understood and needs to be brought into the things we do in Bombay. We work with so many brands and people. I'm sure there's something we can do to help more.